All right, let's be real with each other for a second. You know that moment? It's late, you're finally horizontal, the day is done, and your brain decides right now is the perfect time to replay every awkward conversation you've ever had since 2009. You grab your phone just to check the time, and somehow 45 minutes disappear into a black hole of random videos and whatever algorithm thinks you want to see at midnight. You close the app, stare at the ceiling, and lie to yourself. I'll just go to bed at 9 tomorrow. It'll be fine. It's not fine. You've done this 100 times and it's not fine. Meanwhile, somewhere out there, some guy with a 7-figure business is on a podcast saying he wakes up at 4:30 a.m. after 5 hours of sleep, feeling like an absolute machine. Wow, and you're sitting there on 6 cups of coffee, looking like a haunted scarecrow, wondering how that's even biologically possible. Is he lying? Is he on something? Is he just built different? Here's the blunt answer. He might actually be telling the truth, but not for the reason you think. The reason isn't that he needs less sleep than you. The reason is that the sleep he's getting is working, actually working. Full recovery, clean cycles, deep, efficient, high-quality unconsciousness that does more for his body and brain in 5 hours than your fragmented, restless, screen-interrupted 9 hours is doing for you. That's the part nobody tells you. Sleep isn't a quantity game, it's a quality game, and most people are losing it badly. So let's rip this whole thing apart and rebuild it from scratch. First, let's understand what sleep actually is, because you probably don't. You think sleep is just you laying there not being awake. It's not. It's one of the most aggressively active biological processes your body runs. Your brain doesn't go quiet when you sleep. It shifts gears into a completely different mode of operation and starts doing maintenance work that it literally cannot do while you're conscious. Here's how it actually works. Every single night, your brain moves through a repeating cycle that lasts roughly 90 minutes per loop. Inside each loop, you pass through different phases: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. And each one does something specific and irreplaceable. Deep sleep is your body's repair shop. This is when your muscles rebuild themselves. This is when your immune system ramps up its defenses. But this is when human growth hormone floods your system and your cells start patching themselves back together. Your energy reserves get replenished here. If you're trying to build strength, recover from illness, lose body fat, or just not feel like garbage, deep sleep is doing that work. Not your protein shake, not your pre-workout. Deep sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement, is where your brain does its own version of maintenance. This is the phase where your memories get processed and locked in, where your emotions get regulated, where creative thinking gets reorganized, where your brain essentially takes the chaos of the day, sorts through it, files what matters, and throws away the noise. Waking up sharp, retaining what you learned, thinking clearly under pressure, all of that comes from REM sleep doing its job properly. Now, here's where it gets critical. When these cycles run without interruption, when you drift smoothly through light sleep into deep sleep into REM and back again, your body and brain accomplish extraordinary levels of recovery in a surprisingly short amount of time. That's the biology behind people who genuinely thrive on fewer hours. Their cycles are clean, complete, and efficient. But when your sleep is constantly interrupted, when you're checking your phone at 11, eating a meal at midnight, stressed about tomorrow, lying in a room that's too warm, waking up randomly at 3 a.m., your body never gets enough time in deep sleep or REM. You can be in bed for 9 hours and still wake up feeling like you got hit by a slow-moving bus, because you technically spent most of those 9 hours bouncing around in shallow, useless light sleep that didn't actually do anything for you. That's the trap. More time in bed without better quality sleep is like running on a treadmill and expecting to lose weight while eating fast food every day. The numbers look right on paper. The reality doesn't match. So stop chasing hours. Start optimizing cycles. Here's exactly how. Tip 1. Stop treating your bedtime like a suggestion. Your brain has an internal clock. It's called the circadian rhythm, and it's not a metaphor. It's a genuine biological system that controls when your body releases hormones, when your core temperature rises and falls, when your digestive system activates, and when your brain signals that it's time to shut down for recovery. This clock is incredibly powerful, but it only works properly when you give it consistent signals. What does that mean in practice? It means your bedtime needs to be the same time every single night. Not roughly the same, not usually around 11, the same time. And your wake time needs to be the same every single morning, including weekends, including holidays, including days when you don't have anywhere to be. This is the part people hate hearing. They want to sleep in on Saturday. They want to stay up late on Friday, but they feel like they've earned it. But here's what's actually happening when you do that. You are manually inducing jet lag on yourself every single week. When you stay up until 2 a.m. on Friday and sleep until 10 a.m. on Saturday, your internal clock shifts. Then Sunday comes and you're lying there at midnight, completely unable to fall asleep because your brain thinks it's the middle of the afternoon. Well, Monday rolls around and you're wrecked. You spend half the week recovering from the weekend, and then you do it again. Research from Harvard has shown that inconsistent sleep schedules can reduce your deep sleep by up to 40%. 40%. That's not a rounding error. That's nearly half your recovery gone because you wanted to binge one more episode on Friday night. The fix is brutal but simple. Pick a bedtime and a wake time and hold to them like your performance depends on it. Because it does. Give it a week of genuine consistency and something almost magical happens. You start waking up naturally before your alarm. Your body starts getting tired at the same time every night without you having to force it. The system regulates itself, but you have to give it consistency first. Tip 2. Plan your sleep around the 90-minute cycle. Here's something practical that most people have never thought about. Since your sleep runs in 90-minute cycles, the time at which your alarm wakes you matters enormously. If you're in the middle of a deep sleep cycle when your alarm fires, your brain gets yanked out of restoration mode mid-process. That's why some mornings you feel genuinely awful even after a decent amount of sleep. You interrupted a cycle at the worst possible point. But if you time things so you wake up at the end of a complete cycle, the experience is completely different. You come out of lighter sleep naturally, your brain is already transitioning toward wakefulness, and getting up feels significantly less painful. Not easy necessarily, but not like peeling yourself off the floor either. Yeah, so here's how to use this. Work backward from your wake-up time in 90-minute increments. If you need to be up at 6 a.m., your ideal sleep times are 4:30 a.m., 3 cycles, not recommended, midnight, 4 cycles, 10:30 p.m., 5 cycles, or 9 p.m., 6 cycles. Pick the option that gives you the most complete cycles within the time you have. 4.5 hours of complete cycles will leave you feeling sharper than 6 hours of fragmented, poorly timed sleep. This doesn't mean sleep deprivation is fine, or that you should try to get by on 3 cycles every night. It means that on nights where you have limited time, you can still optimize what you've got. And on normal nights, you can stop randomly picking a bedtime and start intentionally designing your recovery window. Tip 3, the 3-2-1 rule. Build a wind-down routine that actually works. Here's what most people's pre-sleep routine looks like. Work until they're exhausted, eat something random while scrolling through their phone, stare at a screen until their eyes hurt, and then expect to fall immediately into deep restorative sleep the second their head hits the pillow. That's not how it works. That's like sprinting at full speed and then expecting your body to stop instantly. You need a wind-down period, and the 3-2-1 rule is the simplest, most effective framework for building one. 3 hours before bed, stop eating heavy meals. Your digestive system is a significant metabolic process. When you eat a large meal close to bedtime, your body diverts substantial energy toward breaking down that food. Energy that should be going toward rest and repair. Your body temperature stays elevated. Your digestive organs stay active. You might fall asleep, but your sleep quality takes a direct hit. Finish your last substantial meal at least 3 hours before you plan to sleep. 2 hours before bed, stop working. This one is specifically about stress hormones. When you're working, answering emails, solving problems, planning, analyzing, your brain is producing cortisol. Cortisol is the alertness hormone. It's genuinely useful when you need to be sharp and focused. It is absolutely useless and actively harmful when you're trying to fall asleep, because cortisol directly suppresses the signals that initiate deep sleep. When you keep working right up until bedtime, you're flooding your system with a hormone that's biologically designed to keep you awake. Give yourself 2 hours of genuine mental decompression before you lie down. 1 hour before bed, put down the screens. Every screen you interact with, your phone, your laptop, your television, emits blue light. Blue light is a specific wavelength that your brain interprets as sunlight. When blue light hits your retinas, your brain receives a signal that says it's still daytime. Don't start shutting down. Melatonin production, the hormone that initiates your sleep cycle, gets actively suppressed. You've probably experienced this. You lie in bed, you close your eyes, and you just can't sleep. You feel physically tired, but your brain won't stop running. That's the blue light effect playing out in real time. Plus, the hour before bed should look completely different from the rest of your day. Dim your lights. Warm, low-intensity light tells your nervous system that the day is ending. Do something genuinely calming, light stretching, slow breathing, reading a physical book, writing in a journal. Not exciting content, not news, not anything that's going to activate your stress response or pull you into problem-solving mode. Boring, calm, warm, and quiet. That 1 hour of intentional wind down does more for your sleep quality than almost anything else on this list. Tip 4. Your morning routine determines your sleep tonight. Here's a connection most people completely miss. What you do in the first 30 minutes after waking up directly affects how well you sleep that night. This isn't some abstract wellness claim. It's basic neuroscience. Your circadian rhythm is anchored by light, specifically sunlight. When natural sunlight hits your eyes in the morning, not through a window, actually outside, your brain registers it as the clearest possible signal that the day has begun. This triggers a cascade of events. Melatonin production stops. Serotonin starts ramping up. Cortisol peaks appropriately in the morning where it belongs. And your internal clock gets calibrated for the next 24 hours. When your internal clock is properly calibrated in the morning, it knows exactly when evening starts. It knows exactly when to begin ramping melatonin back up. It knows exactly when to signal that it's time to sleep. The whole system runs more accurately. On to 10 to 15 minutes of direct sunlight exposure within the first hour of waking is one of the most underrated sleep optimization tools that exists. It costs nothing, it takes no effort, and it sets your biology up for a cleaner, deeper night of sleep roughly 14 to 16 hours later. Go outside in the morning. Do it consistently. Watch what happens to your sleep after 2 weeks. Tip 5. Stop using the snooze button. Seriously, stop. The snooze button is one of the most counterproductive habits you can have when it comes to sleep quality, and the reasoning is not complicated. When you hit snooze and drift back to sleep, you're not getting useful sleep. You're entering the beginning of a new sleep cycle that you're going to interrupt 8 minutes later. You're not resting, you're torturing yourself in slow motion. And each snooze cycle leaves you feeling progressively worse because you keep initiating deep sleep and then yanking yourself back out of it before it can do anything. Beyond the biology, there's a behavioral issue. Every time you hit snooze, you're training your brain that the alarm is not a real signal, that it's negotiable, that you can override it. And eventually your brain stops taking your wake intentions seriously because you've demonstrated repeatedly that you don't either. The alarm loses its effectiveness as a signal because you've conditioned yourself to ignore it. When your alarm goes off, get up immediately. Not after 1 more minute, not after just a little while. Up. The faster you move, the faster the grogginess dissolves. Splash cold water on your face. Do 10 push-ups or 20 jumping jacks. Step outside. The act of physical movement triggers the release of dopamine and norepinephrine, the brain chemicals that drive alertness and focus. And within a few minutes, the fog genuinely lifts. You don't actually need more sleep in most cases. You just need to get your body moving so your brain gets the signal that it's time to operate. Tip 6, you are probably wrecking your sleep with caffeine and you don't know it. Most people have a general understanding that caffeine affects sleep. What most people don't understand is the degree to which it affects sleep and how long it stays in your system. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in your brain. Adenosine is a compound that accumulates throughout the day and is directly responsible for creating the feeling of sleepiness. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine builds up. The sleepier you feel. Caffeine blocks the receptors that adenosine binds to, which is why it makes you feel more awake. Not because it gives you energy, but because it's chemically preventing you from feeling tired. Here's the critical part. Caffeine has a half-life of 6 to 8 hours. That means if you drink a coffee at 3 p.m., half of that caffeine is still active in your bloodstream at 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. If you drink 2 coffees, the math gets worse. You might feel like you're tired enough to sleep, and you might even fall asleep. But your deep sleep architecture is getting destroyed in the background. Research has shown that late caffeine consumption can reduce deep sleep by 20 to 30%, even when you feel like you slept normally. The practical rule is simple. Keep all caffeine consumption before 2 p.m. But if you're particularly sensitive to caffeine, artists make it noon, or yes, that means no afternoon coffee. Yes, it means checking whether that energy drink or soda you have at 4 p.m. contains caffeine. It almost certainly does. The adjustment is inconvenient for about a week. After that, you stop needing the afternoon caffeine fix anyway, because your sleep quality improves enough that you're not dragging through the afternoons anymore. Tip 7. Your body might be missing the nutrients that make deep sleep possible. This one gets overlooked constantly. Sleep problems aren't always about habits and behaviors. Sometimes they're about what your body has, or more accurately, doesn't have, at the cellular level. Magnesium is one of the most critical minerals involved in sleep regulation. And it plays a direct role in activating the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest mode, and regulating neurotransmitters that promote relaxation and sleep. It helps your muscles physically release tension. It calms neural activity in a way that makes the transition from wakefulness to sleep smoother and faster. The problem is that magnesium deficiency is remarkably common. Modern soil depletion, dietary patterns, and high stress levels all drain magnesium from the body. Many people who struggle to wind down at night, who lie in bed feeling physically tense even when they're exhausted, who wake up repeatedly throughout the night, are experiencing the downstream effects of insufficient magnesium. Magnesium glycinate is specifically well-suited for sleep because it's highly bioavailable and crosses the blood-brain barrier effectively. Herbal options like chamomile or ashwagandha have legitimate evidence behind them for reducing anxiety and supporting relaxation. These aren't miracle supplements. They're filling gaps that your diet probably has. As always, talk to a doctor before adding anything to your routine, particularly if you're on medication. But don't dismiss this angle. Sometimes the reason you can't sleep isn't psychological at all. Tip 8. Get the noise out of your head before you lie down. You know the experience. You've done the wind-down routine, the room is dark, you're physically tired, your eyes are closed, and your brain immediately starts its own private talk show, replaying conversations, building to-do lists, catastrophizing about things that haven't happened, randomly surfacing embarrassing memories from 2014 for absolutely no reason. This isn't a character flaw. This is what brains do when they haven't been given a structured way to process and release the day. Your brain is running in high-frequency beta wave states, active, alert processing, and it needs a deliberate trigger to downshift into the slower alpha and theta wave states that precede sleep. The most effective tool for this is externalization. Get the noise out of your head and onto paper. Spend 5 to 10 minutes before bed doing a brain dump. Write down everything that's occupying your mental bandwidth. Not in a structured way, just everything. Worries, tasks, ideas, things you need to remember, things you're anxious about. Get it out. Then write down specifically what you plan to do tomorrow. A simple list, nothing elaborate. When your brain sees tomorrow's priorities written down, it stops trying to hold on to them. It releases the tension of, don't forget this. You're essentially telling your nervous system, it's handled, it's on paper, you can let go now. And your brain, which is not stupid, takes that signal seriously and starts to quiet down. This is one of those techniques that sounds almost embarrassingly simple, but produces genuinely significant results for people who actually do it consistently. The key word being consistently. The mindset problem. Why you need to stop treating sleep like a sacrifice. Let's address the cultural narrative head-on because it's actively making you worse at life. There is a persistent idea, especially in high performance, us in entrepreneurial and hustle culture circles, that sleeping less is somehow a badge of toughness, that people who sleep 8 hours are lazy, that the truly dedicated and driven are out here grinding on 5 hours while everyone else sleeps their potential away. This idea is not just wrong, it's dangerously wrong, and it's been debunked repeatedly by the sleep science literature, which is unambiguous on this point. Sleep deprivation impairs cognitive function at roughly the same rate as alcohol intoxication. After 17 hours without sleep, your mental performance is equivalent to a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. After 24 hours, it hits 0.10%. Legally drunk in most places in terms of cognitive function. And here's the brutal part. People who are chronically sleep deprived lose the ability to accurately judge how impaired they are. They genuinely believe they're functioning fine. They're not. They're just too impaired to recognize their own impairment. The people who claim to thrive on 4 hours are either genetic outliers, an extremely rare mutation that genuinely does reduce sleep need, less than 3% of the population, or they're accumulating a sleep debt that is slowly degrading their health, cognitive performance, and longevity in ways that won't become obvious until it's too late to easily reverse. True high performers, the ones with sustained excellence over decades, not just a hot streak, protect their sleep. LeBron James reportedly sleeps 12 hours when preparing for games. Why did Roger Federer prioritize sleep as a core component of his training for his entire career? The best military special operations units now include sleep optimization in their performance protocols because the research on the cost of sleep deprivation is that clear. Sleep is not the opposite of productivity. Sleep is what makes productivity possible. It's when your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, creative thinking, and strategic planning, gets restored. When you skip sleep, you're not gaining extra hours of high-performance work time. You're gaining extra hours of degraded, foggy, mistake-prone work time while quietly destroying the cognitive infrastructure you need to actually perform. Think about it from an engineering standpoint. You have a machine that requires scheduled maintenance to operate at peak capacity. You have two choices. Take it offline for maintenance regularly and keep it running optimally, or skip the maintenance and run it continuously until something breaks. The second option might seem more productive in the short term. The long-term math is not complicated. Your brain is the machine. Sleep is the maintenance. Skipping it feels like you're winning time. You're actually borrowing against a debt that compounds with interest. The real goal? Sleep that actually does the job. Here's where all of this comes together. The goal was never to sleep 8 hours. The goal was never to sleep 5 hours. The goal was never a specific number at all. The goal is to give your body and brain enough complete, high-quality sleep cycles to fully recover so you can operate at your actual ceiling the following day. For some people, that happens in 6 hours when those 6 hours are clean, consistent, cycle-aligned, and preceded by an intelligent wind-down routine. For others, it genuinely takes 8. For a small number of people with specific biological makeup, it requires 9 or more. The number is individual. The principles are universal. What you're really chasing is this: waking up before your alarm because your body is genuinely done recovering. Lying there for a moment and noticing that your mind is quiet and clear. Getting up without the desperate, dragging heaviness that comes from fragmented, low-quality sleep. Moving through your morning with actual energy rather than fighting through a fog on caffeine and willpower alone. So that experience is not rare. It's not reserved for people who are genetically gifted or who don't have real responsibilities. It's what your biology is designed to deliver when you stop working against it and start working with it. Consistent bedtime, cycle-aligned wake-up, intentional wind-down, morning sunlight, no late caffeine, no snooze button, a few targeted supplements if needed, and a practice of emptying your mind before you expect it to go quiet. None of this is complicated, and all of it requires consistency. And consistency is the only thing standing between you and sleep that actually works. So stop counting hours. Start engineering recovery. Because you don't need more time unconscious. You need the time you're already spending unconscious to actually do something. And when it does, you won't need to ask how some people thrive on less sleep anymore. You'll be one of them.